Making this place available. Long, long ago, Susan B. Anthony, one of the earliest of the women's suffragettes, organized her first meeting, and there was only one person in the audience. And she profusely apologized to that one person for such a small turnout. And the person stood up and said, "My name is Eugene V. Debs, and it's quality that counts." And you're the quality audience we were looking for tonight. Thank you for coming. My name is Jeff Mackler. I have a couple of credentials. For 37 years, I've been the director of the mobilization to free Mumia Abu-Jamal. And when we started the organization at our first meeting, they said, "How long is this going to take?" And we committed ourselves to stay in business until Mumia is free. I'm also one of the founders and on the National Steering Committee of AssangeDefense.org. And when the Bay Area Book Festival disinvited Alice Walker to their annual event, charging her with anti-Semitism, we started a committee called Stand With Alice Walker. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. And 4,000 people around the world in 2 days signed our petition. 60 different organizations have endorsed and co-sponsored this rally tonight. To give you an idea of the unity that is needed to move forward to free Mumia, free Julian Assange, and free Palestine. And people ask, why did you connect these three issues? And I want to briefly explain before beginning. Mumia Abu-Jamal is just one example of a racist prison industrial system that has the largest number and percentage of its people in jail and on death row in the world. 2.5 million people are incarcerated in this system. Many of them work in an increasingly privatized prison system for an average wage of 50 cents. So our view in this meeting is not only free Mumia Abu-Jamal and free Leonard Peltier and Matula Shakur and all other political prisoners, but in a very real sense, we are for freeing everybody and creating a world where there are no prisons, where racism doesn't incarcerate Native Americans, Latinx people, and blacks because of the color of their skin and because they needed to divide working people. So Mumia is an example of what's fundamentally wrong with a society that is the richest on earth on the one hand and imprisons the largest number. Julian Assange is one person who told the truth about US wars. How many of you have any idea how many people in the United States are paid and have national security clearance of one form or another and are part of the US national security system? 1.4 million people have top clearance, Pentagon national security clearance, and 4.5 million others have clearance. That's the kind of security state that is needed to maintain the privilege of the tiny numbers, to conduct wars, to spy on everybody, as Edward Snowden pointed out. Julian Assange isn't even one of those people like Dan Ellsberg, who will be speaking tonight. He was a journalist from afar. So they smeared him and said he was a rapist, he was a Trump supporter, he was a liar. But everything he said, as you'll see tonight, was the truth, and he's being punished for being a journalist who tells the truth about the horrors of US wars. And on Palestine, Gaza is the world's largest prison system. Mass incarceration of over 1 million people who are not allowed to leave other than to work at Israeli jobs at slave labor. A persecuted, beleaguered people whose land has been stolen from them, whose fight for justice and dignity has resounded around the world, and the majority of the peoples in virtually every country support the demand of free Palestine. So we're going to be hearing all of this tonight. Some of our speakers are unfortunately delayed. Pam Africa, who purchased a plane ticket, we got a plane ticket for Pam to be here tonight, can't be with us other than by phone direct because her companion, Razakhan Wali, was stricken with a massive brain tumor and has to go in for emergency surgery. So you're going to hear from Mama Pam, who represents the other co-sponsoring organization, the International Concerned Family and Friends, tonight in about 20 minutes. Jamal Jr., Mumia's grandson, was supposed to be our next speaker, and his plane has been delayed. We hope he can make it, but if not, we hope he can call in, and otherwise he sends his sincerest greetings. He's the national chair of Love Not Fear. He's an ardent supporter of Mumia Abu-Jamal, and like Mumia, his fight for justice continues until Mumia and all other political prisoners are free. We have today a world-class premiere showing of approximately a 6-minute video called Free Julian Assange. It was made by filmmaker Paul Baker Hernandez while he was in Nicaragua. And the music is by Francisco Herrera and his Caminante Band, who is here with us today. And finally, the words to the song are written by KPFA's host, Dennis Bernstein, who because of illness couldn't make it. So with that, let's hear Free Julian Assange, the premiere video showing. And I think you look up there. The video footage that you saw today was first released by Julian Assange, called Collateral Murder. How many of you are familiar with it? That's why he's being jailed for telling the truth about a war that the President of the United States says was a mistake. But 1.4 million Iraqis died in that war. And it was only the anti-war movement that we built that created a climate that forced the United States to get out. The horror that you witness with collateral murder is the daily deeds of United States troops, which exist in 1,100 military bases, and according to Biden's own report, 159 countries where U.S. conducts operations. I want to give you a bit of a quick update on Mumia's case because Jamal Jr. is not here. On October 19th, he's scheduled to appear in court. Not Mumia, but his case, his lawyers. So this report comes from his attorney, Judith Ritter, who has been with us for some time. There's an October 19th court hearing before Judge Lucretia Clemens. It's part of the Post-Conviction Relief Act process that only came into being when it became clear that the Philadelphia Justice Department hid 9 boxes of material on Mumia's case from the defense team. And that laid the basis for the possibility that we have an evidentiary hearing in a brand new trial. And what are the issues? The one key issue is the Brady decision. The chief eyewitness who says he saw Mumia shoot police officer Daniel Faulkner wasn't on the scene, and the police bribed him to lie and say he was. And that evidence is now going before the courts. Cynthia White, a prostitute who was arrested, claimed that she saw Mumia on the murder scene. She lied too and said, "I only testified because the Philadelphia police said that they would be lenient on sentencing me." Other witnesses were driven out of town, their businesses threatened, and others had police testimony that was totally fabricated. Whereas the film that we have shown, which has been banned in the courts, showed that the entire police case was fabricated. Mumia was a victim of a racist judge in a racist police department. Am I throwing those words around loosely? His judge is the famous Albert hanging Judge Sabo, who before he entered the courtroom, according to the eyewitness court stenographer, said before he entered the courtroom to Judge Mumia, "Yeah, and I'm gonna help him fry the," and he used the N-word. And when we brought that to litigation before Patricia Denby, she said, well, even if he said the N-word, even if she said, he said that he was going to help him execute Mumia, there's no evidence in the trial that that was the case. And then Judge Sabo was decreed by the American Bar Association as saying no one can get a fair trial in Sabo's court. And then there's the Philadelphia Police Department. When Mumia covered the move bombing by the police and was a reporter and a journalist for a local radio station, Rizzo said to him, before he became mayor, he was chief of police, "We're going to hold you responsible." And the U.S. Justice Department investigated the Philadelphia Police Department and imprisoned some dozen officers for corruption, for lying, for involvement in drugs and prostitution. That's the Philadelphia Police Department that framed up Mumia. So we want to bring Mumia home now. We want to free all political prisoners. I just heard yesterday that the entire Democratic Party National Committee signed a petition to Biden saying clemency for Leonard Peltier, an innocent Native American. So now let's go to the next speaker. His name is Chris Hedges. He was a Pulitzer Prize journalist, and he was ripped off the air because of his critical comments on U.S. war policy, and his complete files were negated. And when Alice was attacked and slandered, he joined us to defend Alice and participated in a video that 10,000 people listened to in defense of Alice Walker. Let's hear Chris Hedges link the struggle for free Palestine, free Mumia, and free Assange. We're going to hear Chris by video.
Mumia, Julian, both of whom I visited, Julian in the Ecuador embassy, Mumia and Fracco, are imprisoned for many of the same reasons. They revolutionized reporting. Mumia as a journalist reporting on the assault on the African-American community in Philadelphia, and it was one of the most violent in the country. Eventually, the feds had to come in and take over the police department. And Julian, because he, as a publisher, exposed the crimes of empire, corruption of the United States, and all sorts of examples, for instance, that they were colluding with the ruling elite in Haiti to keep down the minimum wage for sweatshop workers, the famous collateral murder video that everyone knows about, the corruption in Tunisia and everywhere else. So the ruling elites took notice of both of these courageous journalists very early on. They singled them out, they targeted them, and they unjustly imprisoned both of them. I did not sit through Mumia's trial. I have read many of the transcripts. It is a Dickensian farce in the same way that Julian's trial is a Dickensian farce. It's one of the reasons that the British authorities make it so difficult for us to cover it. I have been in the courtroom restricting access, and then when you can get online, there's often no audio, or the audio is so distorted you can't hear it. That's not unintentional, because they're, in both cases, running roughshod over traditional judicial norms. In the case of Julian, the fact that UC Global, the Spanish security firm,
Okay, were you able to hear that okay, everybody? Okay, let's hope this is better. Our next speaker, calling from Philadelphia, whose husband will likely have to go to brain surgery any minute, is the wonderful Mama Pam, the chair of the International Concern Family and Friends of Mumia Abu-Jamal, and a lifelong fighter for Mumia's freedom. Let's welcome Pam. Okay, you're on. Go ahead.
You know,
Thank you. Okay. Our next speaker, by video again, is the National Coordinator of the United National Anti-War Coalition. He's a National Steering Committee member of AssangeDefense.org, and he's a fighter for human liberation across the board. Let's welcome the speech by Joe Lombardo, who is in Wales, England.
On behalf of the United National Anti-War Coalition, UNAC, I want to thank you for organizing and participating in this important meeting. As we all know, Julian Assange is being prosecuted and persecuted. We're exposing U.S. war crimes and telling the truth. We want to let every journalist know that if you do not report only what the U.S. government wants you to report, this can happen to you. The attacks on the Palestinian people are themselves war crimes enabled by the United States with its moral support for Israel, as well as its military and economic support. And the many decades-long persecution of Mumia Abu-Jamal is the shame of this country, but his resistance to it lets them know that he will not be broken. They cannot break Mumia, and they cannot break us. Wherever there is war, oppression, and censorship, there will be resistance. We here today are resisting, and in the period ahead, I am confident that we will be joined by millions more. Today, we are feeling the beginning of the economic consequences of the U.S.-NATO proxy war against Russia and Ukraine. As the profits of the weapons manufacturers, the oil companies, and the banks continue to rise, even as working people experience crippling inflation and recession, there will be resistance. I urge you all to join the UNAC and many other groups which have called for local anti-war actions on October 15th through the 23rd, right before the midterm elections. Let's work together, struggle together, and win together, and make this a better world together. Free Julian Assange, free Mumia Abu-Jamal, free Palestine, and end all wars.
Next, we have two magnificent young people. We did violate all of our rules in inviting young people tonight. I hope you more seasoned folks will forgive us. But these are wonderful youth, the future of our movement, as long as we stay in there and help them out. Let's welcome, from the Middle East Children's Alliance staff, Violette.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. It's truly an honor to be here. My name is Violette. I'm a Palestinian refugee from Jaffa. My mother's parents were exiled in 1948 from their homeland, home that I was able to return to in 2019. It was demolished in a garage. I grew up here in the United States, between Michigan and Southern California. And it's, again, truly an honor to be here, seeing the fire, the dedication of the speakers, especially Mama Pam earlier. I'm seeing what we need, especially from the youth in this moment, is this fire, right? To this dedication to this movement. What we need to free Mumia Abu-Jamal, to free Julian Assange, and to free Palestine, to free all political prisoners, is to reignite this fire. Although I wear many different hats, today I am here speaking to you on behalf of the Middle East Children's Alliance, and I'm representing Mecca and the perspective that we have from Mecca's work on the ground in Palestine. Yesterday was the 40th anniversary of the Sabra and Shatila massacre. This massacre is a black cloud in the history and in the hearts of all Palestinians. The Lebanese fascist phalangist militia brutally slaughtered and murdered 3,500 Palestinian refugees and Lebanese Shia civilians. Just want to give y'all just a glimpse, an image of what this massacre, the tragedy and the brutality of this massacre. Bodies were completely disfigured. Family members could not identify their loved ones. People were stood at the edge of mass graves and shot into those graves. There were mines placed underneath bodies, so when people went to recover their loved ones, they would be met with a mine. People were forced to walk through a maze of cluster bombs. Entire families were wiped out. This massacre cannot be taken in isolation. This tragedy and this suffering is what Zionism means for our people. There are 50 massacres that the Zionist colonial regime has committed against our people. This is what Zionism, settler colonialism means. And those in Sabra and Shatila were massacred, persecuted, blamed, and scapegoated because they were Palestinian refugees and because they did not let go of their connection to Palestine. They continued to fight for their rights. So today, we remember Sabra and Shatila and all of the men, women, children, and elders who were martyred. We remember all of the martyrs of Palestine, all of the martyrs here of black and brown revolutions and movements, and all over the world. The memories of our martyrs remain in our hearts, and they ignite the fire to continue this fight. Palestinians have lived through campaign after campaign of ethnic cleansing. That's why the majority of Palestinians are refugees. And coming up next May is the 75th anniversary of the Nakba, where 510 villages were ethnically cleansed, and 75% of the population of Palestine was exiled from our homes. So today, on the 40th anniversary, or yesterday on the 40th anniversary of Sabra and Shatila, and today, and coming up the 75th anniversary of the Nakba, this is a call for stronger international support for the Palestinian struggle. The grassroots organizations in the refugee camps in Palestine and in Lebanon that Mecca works with continue to struggle against Zionism, and they continue to insist on their rights, and we must continue to uplift that here. We are here today to also raise the issue of political prisoners. There are now over 5,000 Palestinian political prisoners held behind bars. Nasser Abu Hamid is one of them. Nasser was a refugee in Al-Awda refugee camp. He was diagnosed with cancer and his Israeli jailers denied him to get medical access outside of the prison. He is being slowly murdered by the Zionist regime. There have been protests across Palestine calling for his release from Nablus to Ramallah, and he sent a letter to all of the Palestinians who have been demonstrating for him yesterday saying that I am Palestinian first, I am reassured and confident, and I am proud of that. I leave behind me a great people who will not forget my cause and the cause of the prisoners. I bow in honor and reverence to all our patient Palestinian people. I am not upset at the end of the road, because at the end of the road I bid farewell to a great and heroic people. I will join the caravan of martyrs of Palestine. Nasser Abu Hamid is one of hundreds of thousands of our people who have been imprisoned to enact collective punishment and ethnic cleansing on our people. This policy of medical negligence against Palestinian prisoners is a part of denying Palestinian prisoners their rights on a broader scale. Administrative detention is another policy where Palestinian prisoners are imprisoned based on a secret file that only the military prosecution and the military judge can know. And This condition of incarceration and of imprisonment is a condition for Palestinians. It's a condition for black and brown people. It's a condition for Mumia Abu-Jamal, for Julian Assange, for political activists. Today we are here to call for the freedom of Julian Assange and Mumia Abu-Jamal because political prisoners are the same. They are fighting for their freedom for political prisoners everywhere. No matter the jailer, political prisoners have the same weapon, the hunger strike. They fight through their bodies, they fight through their stomachs. And prisoners will never forget about each other. Prisoners are the vanguards and the leaders of our struggle. They are the candle, they are the light that illuminates the path forward for our movement and for our freedom. They are the hardcore of liberation movements all over the world. Prisoners are at the center of that. They are the backbone of international solidarity. They are the backbone of our political trajectory, and they are the backbone of our movement. Through Mecca's work with ex-prisoners in East Jerusalem, prisoners say that prison stays within people. You leave the prison, but the prison doesn't leave you. Prison is a condition meant to target the spirit of the prisoners and those on the outside to not fight and to not support them. It is meant to destroy our hopes for liberation and for our freedom, and prisoners show us time and time again that this spirit will never die. Prisoners lead our struggle, and that's why we need to come together and mobilize and fight for prisoners like Mumia Abu-Jamal, like Julian Assange, like Nasser Abu Hamid, like Ahmed Mansara. Without their struggle and without their leadership, we would be lost. Free Mumia, free Julian Assange, and free Palestine.
Thank you, Violette. And we will now hear from another wonderful youth, and her name is Suzanne Edouni, and she represents the Palestinian youth movement. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Good. Okay.
Speak right into it.
Hi everyone, my name is Suzanne and I'm a proud member of the Palestinian Youth Movement, and I thank you for inviting us here to speak today. And thank you so much for coming out as well. As we talked about, yesterday was the 40th anniversary of the Sabra and Shatila massacre, in which over 3,500 Palestinian refugees and Lebanese Shia were massacred by the fascist Lebanese forces backed by the Zionist settler colonial entity. That massacre echoes the savagery of the previous massacres and of course all massacres that have taken place thereafter to this day. I want to emphasize that we Palestinians never forget these massacres, and we never forget all of our martyrs, and we never forget who our enemies are and what they stand for. My mother would always talk about how when she was younger and the Sabra and Shatila massacre was on the news, the broadcasters warned that the images would be disturbing and graphic. But my grandfather sternly told my mother and her siblings not to turn away. He told them to look at what the Zionist and fascist Lebanese forces had done, and he told them to never forget. He said, remember who your enemies are, and remember who the disloyal traitors are, and remember what they've done to our people. While massacres like Sabra, Shatila, Deir Yassin, Lid, and all those in Gaza are especially horrifying and gruesome, we don't suggest that the horrors of the Zionist entity only show out in these campaigns of slaughter. We recognize that every single day that the Zionist entity exists is a continuation of genocide. The martyrs of Sabra and Shatila, like those before them and those who came after them, resisted against the Zionists and against US imperialism and the Arab comprador allies of these murderous colonial institutions with every bit of strength that they had. Whatever mere tools of arms our martyrs had, and with whatever prayer they could recite, they have resisted. That is how we remember our martyrs, and this is how we honor them every day. In remembering them in their resistance, and knowing that the only way to bring actual, true justice in each of their names is to bring forth the full dismantlement and eradication of Zionism, US imperialism, and their proxies. We must speak out. We must speak out against comprodorism and cowardice, and we must support full-fledged resistance today until complete liberation and return. And this includes rejecting pathetic concessions, speaking out against those who are self-interested opportunists, and following the line of our people on the ground in real time, directly combating the enemies every single day. We honor all those who resist, including those in Gaza who in fact freed themselves from Zionist settlements. While Gazans are often portrayed as victims, I think it's important to publicly acknowledge their growth and continued development as a people who liberated themselves in resistance against the Zionists, and who, despite murderous blockades and bombing campaigns enforced by the Zionists and backed by the US, continue to advance in their military resistance today. And of course, every day, we keep in mind some of the most revolutionary of our people, those who are being kept within Zionist prisons, those who are often in confrontation with Zionist state forces every single day, and who resist by hunger strikes and whatever available means they have. As V pointed out, we acknowledge the struggle today of Nasser Abu Committe, who is suffering from cancer as he is imprisoned by the Zionist entity and subject to calculated and intentional medical negligence. We remember that those locked up in Zionist prisons are the core of our liberation movement, and we uplift their actions and voices every day. To reiterate, the purpose of captivity and subjugation is to dampen our people's spirits, but we see and have proof that our people remain proud and dedicated. Their spirit and will are unbreakable, and they remain stronger than any weapon formed against them. And so we lift the voice of our people in Palestine and those who stand with our people, those who are dedicated to eradicating the cancerous tumor that is the Zionist entity in our region, and those who work toward bringing imperialism to its death in our lifetime. We, the PYM, stand proudly with all other international political prisoners, including the great Mumia Abu-Jamal, as well as Julian Assange, who bravely work against these systems. We join the righteous call for the freedom of all political prisoners. Until liberation for all, and until the fall of empire, death to imperialism, comprodorism, Zionism, and settler colonialism from Turtle Island to Palestine. Long live joint struggle and international solidarity. Long live our martyrs, and absolute glory to our precious resistance in every necessary form. Thank you.
Welcome the new generation of liberation fighters. Suzanne and Violette, we're honored that you're here. You're going to be leading the future marches that liberate the American people. Thank you. Our next speaker was not able to make the meeting, but we have taped remarks from the world-renowned Pentagon defendant, Daniel Ellsberg. Daniel Ellsberg released the truth about the war in Vietnam. That truth is being hidden, like the truth about the war that the United States commits all over the world today, without exception. They now look back and say Vietnam was a mistake too, but they killed 4 million people in Vietnam for defending their right to self-determination. And the only reason we forced them out after 10 years and 57,000 young people dead was because we built an anti-war movement to change the consciousness of the American people and forced the United States out. Daniel Ellsberg's contribution to that effort and his vindication when they tried to put him in prison under the Espionage Act in the same way that they're trying to put Julian Assange away, was a victory for all humanity. Let's welcome the remarks of co-national chair of Assange Defense, along with Alice Walker, Daniel Ellsberg.
The Second World War and the German invasion of
a direct assault on the freedom of the press, on the First Amendment, and on journalism here in general. It's the very first prosecution of a journalist for doing journalism, criminalizing journalism, in effect, in this country, in blatant violation of the First Amendment. My case, 10 years ago, was the first prosecution of anyone as a whistleblower for leaking information, classified information to the public. There have been many leaks before, but no prosecutions, precisely because of the First Amendment, which obviously forbade such prosecutions. So my prosecution was an experiment to see whether some law, in this case, the Espionage Act, so-called Espionage Act, could be used against the non-espionage defendant. I wasn't claimed to be a spy. It was recognized that I was a source, in fact, they were acting on a patriotic motives, to give information to the public. The government did not want violations of treaties, reveal decades of lying to the American public, and of secret threats that had increasingly escalated a wrongful, hopeless, murderous war. Like, for example, the war that we have waged on Iraq for many years now. I don't think any of those wars would have come about had there been whistleblowers like Chelsea Manning or Ed Snowden. If the public and the Congress had been told about the planning, threats, lies involved in those operations, I think that what amounted to millions of people ultimately would have lived, would have had their lives spared. The point here is that for many years, whistleblowers have been essentially needed if we were to avert both unconstitutional and terrible, wrongful wars. Julian Assange set up WikiLeaks in order to facilitate whistleblowers, to facilitate public information that governments were wrongly withholding from their public, and it was needed by the public, and he did so. I actually stood at his side in a press conference in 2010 when he revealed the so-called Iraq war logs. Thousands of pages we know now were supplied by Chelsea Manning. Illegalities, including torture. So a number of governments, Britain, which was a very cooperative partner in this coalition building in aggression against Iraq, it revealed crimes, actually. Not only it wasn't high enough level in the decision making to reveal how we got into Iraq, but what we were doing when we were there, which involved death squad assassinations and torture, widespread torture, was something our government did not want known. It was a clear revelation of war crimes. And so it was kept classified.
Draw a parallel between your experience as a whistleblower, the New York Times as a publisher, and today with WikiLeaks.
Thanks to a memoir by Jim Goodale, the then counsel of the New York Times during the Pentagon Papers adjudication, the attempt to censor the press, actually, the first time that there was an effort actually to, a prior restraint, have an injunction against the publication of anything, but in this case, the Pentagon Papers. He revealed that he had known at that time that President Nixon, had impaneled a grand jury that was pursuing the prosecution of New York Times journalists like Niels Sheehan and Henrik Smith. That was very little known up until quite recently, and apparently their lawyer at that time had told Goodale that he fully expected them to be indicted. That would have been the first indictment of a journalist. Now, almost half a century later, Julian Assange is now the first to have actually been indicted as a journalist on this case. And that will mean, essentially, that we won't have a free press. The public will know essentially what the government chooses to tell them, however untrue and however selective and misleading about its own operations. It's hard to call that a democratic republic. Much depends then on preventing or stopping this extradition or prosecution or conviction of Julian Assange.
Okay. We're a little bit early for Mumia. I just got a note from Mama Pam. She's in the emergency room with her husband who, because of the brain tumor, can't stand up and his blood pressure is out of control. And she wishes us a successful meeting in love and solidarity. And she had to cut her remarks off. Our next speaker is one of my favorite people. She's a Pulitzer Prize novelist. She's the author of The Color Purple. She's a co-national chair of Assange Defense. She's visited Mumia Abu-Jamal and Julian Assange in prison. And 40 years ago, after the Sabra and Shatila massacre, exactly 40 years ago, almost to the date, when the Israeli governments guarding the Palestinian refugee camps purposely withdrew to allow the fascist Phalange groups to slaughter 3,000 innocent Palestinians, we put a full-page ad in the New York Times that cost us $50,000 at that time. And it was titled, the first time, End All Aid to Apartheid Israel. And it was signed by people around the world. And the first two signers were Alice Walker and Angela Davis. And the very next day, the New York Times gave Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz the opportunity to reply. And they called Alice Walker and Angela Davis anti-Semites. The same call that we hear against Alice today. A couple of decades ago, we had a meeting at Glide Memorial Church for the daughter of Bishop Tutu, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Naomi Tutu, opposing South African apartheid. And guess who one of our keynote speakers was then? Alice Walker. I'm very pleased that Alice Walker, a very special person who has never let a principle for human dignity slide by. Let's give a warm welcome and indeed stand up for Alice Walker. Anti-Semitism is not, anti-Zionism is not.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for being here. It's a little chilly. It's nice to be at home, but it's also nice to be together in whatever way we can manage that. In fact, when I was thinking about coming tonight, I was thinking of asking everybody to think about how the hug, H-U-G, has been stolen from us and how it has harmed us not to have it. We need to hug. So, you know, at your own comfort level, please, at some point tonight, hug, you know, either someone here, someone at home. If we lose this ancient way of reassuring us that being human is wonderful, we will suffer, you know, in ways that have nothing to do with, you know, disease and bombings. It'll just be a kind of atrophy of the heart. I've been thinking a lot about children because my neighbor just had a grandchild and I'm totally in love with her. She's all of, I think, maybe not quite 2 months old. And I have to think about what the world is that she is coming into. And especially how challenging it is, because I also of course, believe that a woman has a right to her body, and therefore, she doesn't have to have children if she doesn't want children. At the same time, I'm looking at this adorable baby, and I've always loved babies. And there's another place, kind of with the hug, it's a place where we have to maintain this warm feeling about all the little ones coming, at the same time that we have to maintain the sovereignty of our own spirit and body. So I was thinking about Julian and Stella's child, Gabriel, who was named after his uncle Gabriel, that we saw when they came to last time to a circle of us. And I wanted to read this poem that I wrote for Gabriel because, it's not that we forget the children, because it's just that there's so much that we have to deal with, but they're very much important for us to always consider. So I wanted Gabriel to grow up with me as a kind of auntie that was thinking about him while they were doing these terrible things to his father. It's important for the young to know that somebody, some adult was noticing what was happening to their parents. Gabriel Assange wants to count. He wants to count. When Gabriel Assange grows up, I want him to know that I was thinking of him on his first visit to see his father in prison. That I was moved to realize his big gift to his father was that since he last saw little Gabriel had learned to count. Remember what it was like to learn to count? Was it to 10, to 20, to 35? Was it the number of days, weeks, months? Days, weeks, months, since his father smiled on him. We used to do everything, even offer ourselves to cruel masters to stay with even one member of our family as we were being sold. The pleading, even now, I sometimes feel in my dreams. Gabriel, small warrior, you will have to be brave and of strong heart to comprehend the same cruelty. The same cruelty. Looks different, but it's the same cruelty and its long history. They want to make you think. They want to make you think that you don't count at all. I can tell you, they have failed to convince hearts that always knew and know to this day that this is not so. The next poem, thank you. The murder of the children in Palestine and the disfigurement of them is almost unbearable. It just is. How we find a place to put what is being done to these children. How do we do it? The slain children of Palestine hold council in paradise. What a wonderful dog. Now here are these children, they have gone to paradise and they are holding council. When we go to paradise, let us hold council also. We will go, we will hold council. We will be present to each other in paradise, as these children are. The slain children of Palestine hold council in paradise. Who knew death would be like this? A young boy considers reconnecting a limb and looks down thoughtfully at an eye that looks casually around paradise which turns out to be everywhere. Who knew we would learn so much and that the journey from the way things look will never end? They are still fighting and killing us below. They are still fighting and killing us below. They do not know we never die, but do they? And is this the way life punishes them? Never to be known for what they give to the world, which is a lot, but by what they take. There's a thought. What message to our parents, our schoolmates, our friends? What message? How much love they have for us, the fallen. How much suffering our deaths have caused. If only we could drop that feather, if only we could drop that feather promised to Yoko Ono by John Lennon, announcing the promised realm of being that does not ever disappoint or disappear. We are the lucky ones. We are the lucky ones, gone on to glory. How do we judge those who murdered us? How do we judge those who murdered us? How do we say to our families, this is not the end? That it is life's deathless breath that now is holding us in a peace that has no name or form. Inexhaustible life that opens once again in dying. Inexhaustible life that opens once again in dying. Life that witnesses everything. Life that witnesses everything forever. And is wildly flexible in its eternity. It is said that John Lennon promised his beloved Yoko Ono that if he found whatever heaven is after his death, he would let her know by dropping a feather. Some pictures that you see from what is happening to the children in Palestine are really literally unbearable. They just are. You just can't believe that people would do these things. You just can't believe it. It's just... So there was this one little boy who's, with our tax money, they had basically bought the weapons to take his hands, to destroy his hands. So there's a photograph where he's trying to learn to write again with what looks like 2 Coke bottles on the ends of his what's left of his arms. And he's trying, that's the thing about children, they keep trying, they just... So anyway, I wrote this poem for him because I think what the children of the world really would like is for us to adopt them. And I'm not saying go try to, I tried to adopt some children in Rwanda and it didn't work. But there is a way, emotionally and spiritually, that we can adopt these children, and we can. I was going to say we should, but, it's up to us. But I'm saying to this young child whose arms and whose hands were taken by our tax dollars, I'm going to try something that maybe has not been tried before. I am offering myself as your angel before you grow up and I die. What does this mean? It means you are not to despair. You are not to give up. Someone, me, your personal angel, is forever, or at least until you are 30 or so, walking beside you. This life can be hard. heaven knows. But it is also a kind of heaven in itself, complete with hellish realities. Getting through it with a free heart, a light spirit. Getting through it with a free heart, a light spirit, takes all we have. But getting through the fog of pain to bask in the light, if only momentarily, is the human task that finally frees us, it has seemed to me. A human who has also suffered and still loves life. All of its faces, smiling or grim, finally as precious, beloved, and dear as yours. Imagine, whenever you think of me, for years and years, I will be there, holding your hands. For though they were taken by Israeli soldiers and American taxpayers and politicians who must live with the obligation to carry them too, they are safer with me. For this magic too is how life works. Then there's a quote from Mumia. Thank you. When a cause comes along and you know in your bones that it is just, yet you refuse to defend it, at that moment you begin to die. And I have never seen so many corpses walking around talking about justice. That's Mumia. And there was a poem I was going to read about Mumia and, Leonard and a long line of dentists, so many people, some of them now gone from us. But I think I'll just read the commentary that I wrote for the poem because it is too long. We must continue to believe human beings are not so bad that we deserve the leadership we've acquired. We don't deserve these people. But that we might actually achieve, if we work at it hard enough, and as has happened in the past, leadership that is compassionate. That is what we need, compassionate leadership. We can lead ourselves in caring in any case. I wrote a poem about Mumia, which is too long to read tonight. Many years ago, probably around the elections of 2008, when hope was high. However, Mumia's continued and ever-increasing suffering hits all of us who love him at a level really almost beyond heartbreak. I'm sure the suffering is intended. We are to learn who has power and that we don't. I maintain we do have the power to love, to cherish, to honor, as Pam and Ramona Africa, Johanna Fernandez, Noel Hanrahan, and others of Mumia's universe and diverse band of angels who regularly rally around him demonstrate. It is not a power that has gotten him out of prison, but it is a power that shines a light into all similarly dark places, and they are countless on the earth. I have been honored to visit Mumia twice, years apart. Each time he waved his shackled hands. He waved his shackled hands as we said goodbye. Each time I was struck by what is always so obvious about him. He is a deeply truthful, good, and beautiful being. The kind of compassionate leader, one in a number as must be, we are ready for. And then I want very much to have a poster made that has Julian and Stella on it. I don't know how we'll do that. Maybe someone here can figure this out. But I think we need to put more, in a way, awareness of the fragility and the strength of their bond. We need to share that with the world. What they're doing is extraordinary. I mean, I went to visit Julian in where they had him, where he was staying at the embassy in London. I don't know how they managed to get those children. I mean, it is incredible. There's a camera, many cameras, and so forth. But they managed to have 2 children together, so this is incredible. And this kind of passionate love that is never swayed is very good medicine for us. So if there's someone here who knows how to make a poster out of this, I would love it. I think we can be encouraged. It's very brief. Under a photo of these 2 who had to go through hell to get married. On the day that you were married, I lit a candle for you. On the day that you were married, I lit a candle for you. And I placed it on the altar of my heart. And then back to Palestine, this last poem. You know, the truth is that I'm sure many of you, like me, we've been beaten. They've beaten us so heavily with, what they're doing to the Palestinian people. They know that every horrible thing they do to someone there, we feel. They know this. This is how they break us. But you finally, in every struggle that you care about, you finally do reach a point where you just know you will never desert these people. Never. No matter what. You just as, in fact, you'd be happy to just go down with them because you see who they are. You don't want to just go down with any old body. You want to go down with warriors. You want to go down with people who have incredible resistance, great heart, All I know is that I can never forsake you, Palestine. Why you are embedded in my heart is not hard to comprehend. It's not. You knock to your knees, remain standing. You are our teacher in how to rise. You are our teacher in how to rise while falling down. Our apple for the teacher. Our apple for such a teacher must be the blood red of our solidarity and the green forever of our awareness of what is true. And I say that because one of the sneakiest, most horrific things that people in power can do with their money and their control is twist history. And they will have us thinking, if we let them, that what we saw with our own eyes and felt in our own bodies never happened. But the truth of Palestine, that is shared can be a medicine for the world. And we must never let it go.
Who had to tape his remarks because the prison won't let him speak in Philadelphia at the time of our meeting. I want to make an appeal for you to contribute financially, to continue our work, the work of the Mobilization to Free Mumia, the work of Pam's International Concerned Family and Friends, to pay the very significant expenses of this meeting. So I'm asking my friend Judy to show you that we have some collection buckets, but I'm going to start with my own pledge to the Mobilization to Free Mumia and the International Concerned Family and Friends of $500. And I would ask, is there anyone here who can match that amount? Does anyone have? Alice? So we're up to $1,000 on the collection. And we just counted, we have approximately 100 people here. I'm very proud of you who came. And KPFA has told us beforehand, just a few minutes before the meeting started, that they're live streaming it, so people will hear this everywhere. And thanks to filmmaker and one of our speakers, Steve Zeltzer, we're videoing it, so we have copies for everybody. So $500 is a lot of money, but how about a group of people that can raise their hand and contribute $100? On the back of the speakers list, there's a pledge form. You can fill it out, hand me your pledge, and keep a copy, and you can mail it. But raise your hand if you can contribute $100 tonight. Let's see if we can get, there's one. What's your name? What? Kim? Kim. And another? Thank you. And your name? Don. I'm sorry, John. Forgive me. And a third, what's your name? Oh, right, David Paul. And a fourth? Say it loud, Nancy. That's 400. And way in the back is 500. Shout out your name. And another one from Judy, from Paul Cox from Veterans for Peace. That brought us up to 600. Can we get to 1,000 with $100 contributions? Vincent, did you say you had your hand up?
Yes, I did.
Oh, was that for 1,000 or 2,000? Okay, 100. So what does that put us at? 700. Let's see if we can make 1,000. Cynthia Papermaster from Code Pink made it 7 or 8? 8,000. 2 more for another 1,000. Someone is scratching their ear over there. Should I count that? Okay. Rick Sterling, journalist, Mount Diablo Peace and Justice Center, made it 900. 1 more for 1,000. And here's one. Tell us your name. Phoebe Jorgen from the Social Justice Commission of the Berkeley Unitarian Universalist Church, or something like that. Thank you. So that's 1,000. Any more? That's $2,000. And there's another one for 100. That's 1,100. Anyone else? 1,200 right here. Thank you. Shout out your name. Yeah. Michael. So we're 1,200. Any more hundreds? Okay, how about $50? Raise your hand and I'll count them off. 150. Any more for 50? $20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 3. Okay. $10 or less, just raise your hand, and if you can throw in whatever you want. There's 1. Thank you, thank you. 2, 3, 4. So I think we're close to 2,500 plus 100 times 20. That's maybe we've raised $3,000 or $4,000. Fantastic, fantastic. With that, thanks to our engineer, whose name is Dylan Williams, who will now play the remarks of Mumia Abu-Jamal on the subjects before us. Welcome, Mumia.
Julian Assange, a journalist and publisher for the internet agency known as WikiLeaks, faces a frightening regime of U.S. torture if he's extradited to America on false espionage charges. Assange's WikiLeaks has only committed their jobs as journalists to unravel and expose government lies, government crimes, and government murders in their imperial persecution of unjust wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Assange committed no crime except perhaps that which is truly unpardonable, embarrassing the U.S. Imperial Army as it killed innocent, unarmed civilians in Iraq and elsewhere. WikiLeaks published tapes of American soldiers laughing and joking as they slaughtered Arabs. And guess who got charged with a crime? Julian Assange, who has been subjected to mind-bending tortures of solitary confinement, itself a violation of international human rights law. Julian is not a citizen of the U.S. He is not a spy. He is a brave and resourceful journalist who fought to reveal the truth. He should be free, and not only of thought, but of word. And now, to Palestine. Recently, when writing about Palestine, I referenced the work of philosopher Attila Mbende's 2019 book, Necropolitics. Professor Mbende makes note of what he calls exits from democracy, or of those intentionally excluded from democratic consideration, those contemplated as outsiders. He writes about the Palestinians in the lands of their birth of such an excluded people, and he compares this to the mid to late 20th century exclusions known to the world as apartheid in South Africa. In Berkeley, permanent or random checkpoints, cement blocks, and mounds of earth designed to block roads, the control of air and marine space, of the import and export of all sorts of products, frequent military incursions, demolition of houses, the desecration of settlements, uprooting whole olive groves, obliterating and turning infrastructure to dust, high and medium altitude bombs, targeted assassinations, urban counterinsurgency techniques, the profile of mines and bombs, constant harassment, the ever smaller subdivision of land, cellular and molecular virus, the generalization of the cancer form. Every feasible means is put to work to impose a regime of separation whose function, paradoxically, depends on proximate intimacy with those who have their needs separated. And that is 44. He has such practices variously recalled the reliable model of apartheid with its vantage standards, vast reservoirs of cheap labor, its white zones, its multiple jurisdictions, and wanton violence. However, the metaphor of apartheid does not fully account for the specific character of the Israeli separation project. First, this project rests on a rather singular, metaphysical, and existential base. the effects of the Israeli project on the Palestine-Rally are far more formidable than the relatively primitive operations undertaken by the apartheid regime in South Africa between 1948 and the early 1980s. This also goes for the militarization of violence, its cellularization and molecularization, as well as its various techniques of material and symbolic effacing. It is also evidenced in the procedures and techniques of demolishing almost everything: infrastructure, houses, roads, the countryside, and the dynamic of frenzied destruction, whose essence lies in transforming the lives of Palestinians into a heap of ruins or a pile of garbage destined for cleansing. In South Africa, the mounds of ruins never did reach such a scale. Professor Peltier, Achilles in the book Necropolitics is quoted here. This should give us some insight into the regime of collective punishment enacted against Palestine, written by a brilliant African scholar. As for me, the struggle continues. Wherever you are, there's probably a group of young activists who organize on our behalf. We struggle on for the words of our beloved sister, Julian Assange. Freedom is a constant struggle. I love you all. With love, not fear. This is Mumia, Abu-Jamal.
Free Mumia! Free Mumia! Free Julian! And free Palestine! I have an amazing announcement before I introduce Vincent DiStefano. Vincent is a tireless, incredible, devoted national leader of Julian Assange's defense. And he's taken on an amazing task. How many of you know that Roger Waters, formerly of Pink Floyd, is touring the United States? Raise your hand. He's going to appear and he has 28 cities, and every city he's speaking at a major auditorium. This coming Friday and Saturday, he is performing with his band in a 2-hour performance at the Chase Center, which holds 18,000 people. He has a 10-minute incredible video section on freeing Julian Assange and freeing Palestine and ending all U.S. wars and ending racism in the context of a magnificent musical show in 28 cities reaching millions of people. So our committee, Assange Defense, is organizing at every one of these cities. To attend the concert, and Richard Waters has given us 20 free tickets at $175 each, center of the auditorium, at both concerts, plus 4 tickets for the Veterans for Peace, and you'll hear from Susan Schnall in a second, and 4 tickets for our Assange Defense, twice over. That's 16 more. And we can't find the people who want to go and table for us and participate with one condition. You get a free ticket, and all you have to do is show up, take some of the flyers, leave the concert 20 minutes earlier, and pass them out in mass. Raise your hand if you want to do that. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You raised your hand 4 times. 14. Okay, here's all you have to do. 15. Here's all you have to do. Go to the Assange table in the back. You have to give your name, your email, and your phone number, and you will get a free ticket because your name, email, and phone number will be given by Vincent and by the national leadership of Assange Defense to the director of the concert nationwide. You will go there and pick up your tickets, provided only you give your name and your email and phone. And in order to do that, you have to sign up with Vinny at the end of the meeting in the back. And you will get your free tickets guaranteed when you go there. You have to tell Vinny what day, Friday or Saturday, you'll be there. You have to commit to be there a bit early. Vinny has all the information. And to leave about 10 or 15 minutes later and distribute the literature. So with that incredible amount, we have 11 people, plus we have our own people, and there's another one, 12. What? It's going to be at the Chase Center. It's the largest auditorium in San Francisco. We'll give you the information. So with that, let's give the warmest welcome to Vincent DiStefano, National Coordinator of Assange's Defense, coordinator of the tour, and one of the finest human beings ever to enter the freedom struggle. Vinny.
Jeffrey, you're too kind. Brothers and sisters, I humbly come before you tonight as a representative of Assange Defense. I also come for the family of Julian Assange, his father, John Shipton, Gabriel, his brother, his wife, Stella Morris, and especially his two children. They have had the misfortune to watch Julian's torture and slow-motion execution, just like Mumia, at the hands, in this case, of the British courts, but both of them in the imperial might of the United States government and its intelligence services. There are many things I can tell you about Julian and the journalism that he has produced through WikiLeaks, an organization that he helped to establish in 2006. I can tell you that they have released thousands and thousands of documents provided by anonymous whistleblowers all across the globe. That those documents, those very documents, have exposed crimes and lies of many nations, organizations, and individuals who never wished those documents to see the light of day. That during those 16 years of their existence, WikiLeaks has never had to issue a single retraction or issue an apology for anything they have produced. Thank you. I know of no journal that can say that. However, due to the limited time we have tonight, I want to talk about something that you may not know. I want you to tell about his as yet unknown, unindicted co-conspirator who stands in the dock with Julian. For should Julian be extradited to the United States, they too will be subjected to the same fate as Julian. Now, Julian's case will be heard in the Eastern District Court of Virginia, pejoratively known as the Rocket Docket. That is because it had an unbelievable 98.2% conviction rate. So much for the presumption of innocence. This is the same court that has convicted many recent whistleblowers, including Daniel Hale, Chelsea Manning, John Kiriakou, and Jeffrey Sterling, to name just a few. Their crimes? Telling us the truth about what our government does in our names. However, the very organizations, the individuals whose crimes they exposed, still walk free. Worse yet, in many cases, those criminals appear ad nauseum in major media outlets to pontificate and propagandize with impunity, while these heroes have languished under harsh prison conditions and eventually, upon release, see that their lives have been shattered beyond recognition or repair. Now, the unindicted co-conspirator I'm talking about is you, the people, for we stand in the dock with Julian as well. Thank you. It is our very right to know that has been put in jeopardy by the 17 counts of the Espionage Act that have been brought against Julian. Now, what are those charges? Are they because he lied? Are they because he caused harm to the individuals, any individuals or entities, due to the revelations made by WikiLeaks? No. A careful reading of the charges, and I suggest you all read them, tells you that they are for Julian having the temerity to share the truth with the people. The truth regarding our lies, misrepresentation, and crimes rising to the level as the collateral murder video shows verifiable war crimes committed by the U.S. government in our names and with our tax dollars. Simply look at the opening statement made by the prosecution at Julian's extradition and trial for the level of hypocrisy that is unbounded. Their opening statement, and I quote, is "No one was harmed by anything WikiLeaks released." That statement is utterly stunning in its admission, but as I said, even more so by its utter hypocrisy. What that statement tells us is that Julian is being charged with the unforgivable crime of telling us all the truth. Now let me be clear. Both Julian and Mumia Abu-Jamal do not speak truth to power. Speaking truth to power is an exercise in futility. Power doesn't give a damn what you or they say. Especially if it calls them to account for the lies and crimes. What Julian and Mumia, to their eternal credit, are doing is speaking truth to us, to the people. That is something that power takes very seriously. Speaking truth to power, to the people, is the job of any real journalist, and it is in far, far too limited an opportunity to see. It is, what he said is it creates the necessary predicate for a functioning democracy, an informed and educated electorate. Power trembles before an informed citizenry. The great Frederick Douglass said more than 200 years ago, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. Only an informed, educated electorate is able to make demands for their rights. It was not power, it was not the government, it was not officials that gave workers their rights, women's their rights, civil rights, or any other rights, or ended the war in Vietnam. As a matter of fact, power fought for every one of those things and fought against our rights. It was only the direct action of countless citizens rising up, protesting, and being willing to be beaten, jailed, and yes, murdered to demand the rights that gave the people the rights they now possess that now stand in jeopardy. I will close with words that come to us from the Warsaw Ghetto, where harassment, torture, starvation, and murder were brutally inflicted upon the Jewish people by Nazis. Today, to its eternal shame, the apartheid state of Israel has created its own replica of the Warsaw Ghetto, and we call that Gaza, the world's largest open-air prison. Mordecai Anelowitz, the leader of the Warsaw Ghetto, said, "The opposite of despair is not hope, it is struggle." Therefore, I call on all of you to join the struggle. Free Assange, free Mumia, free Palestine. Thank you all very much.
Please stay with us. We're wrapping up the meeting. We're on schedule to close in just a few minutes over 2 hours. And you should have before you a petition to free Julian Assange. There are 10 clipboards around. Raise your hand if you have one. On this side. Okay, let's get someone take this clipboard and pass around the others to the whole audience. And meanwhile, let's welcome the magnificent band person who did the video that you heard, Free Julian Assange. Let's welcome Francisco Javier Herrera and his accompaniment with Camilo Landau. Welcome, Francisco.
Thank you very much. Yeah, a little bit. I think what'll do. I want to start by thanking our good brother Dylan Williams, who's been doing the sound, and that's why we can hear each other. And a special thanks to a man who hasn't stopped hassling, calling, moving, getting us here, Jeff Mackler. Thank you. If you'll permit me, I just want to make us important recognition, acknowledgement that we sitting here are in the land of the Huichin, known as Huichin, the original landscape of the Chochenyu speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona band of Alameda County. The counties to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familiar descendants of the Verona band. We recognize as members of this community who have benefited from being on this land that these communities have never ceded nor forgotten the responsibility of being caretakers for this, our mother, the earth. Thank you. Okay, muy bonito. Let me hear your singing voice. Very nice. Híjole. Oh yes, please welcome and thank you to Franklin Sterling over here at KPFA, who's doing live streaming. All right, let me hear your singing voice again. Muy bonito. We have to keep our eyes on the prize and be able to see the prize so that we can keep our eyes on it. So, how do we build a peace economy? Because right now we're all slaves to a war economy. That's the reality. So, your singing line is, people work now for the common good. Can you try it? People work now for the common good. Ooh, too shy. We're not gonna win this way. Let me hear you. People work now for the common good. Your turn. Ready? You won't believe what I heard. You won't believe it. War is not the answer anymore. It never was. You won't believe what I heard, but you believe it. We don't have to cultivate our lives for war. Companies now have budgets that put people first. Working folks are making tools to listen to the earth. You won't believe what I heard, but it might be true. Ready? People work now for the common good. One more time. People work now for the common good. Nah, 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 nah. You won't believe what I heard. Would you believe it? Nobody is signing up for war. We got together and decided not to do it. Just like the guy who dreamt it once before. Gardens are now growing where there once were guns and tanks. Bees are pollinating where the flowers have come back. You won't believe what I heard, but it might be true. People work now for the common good. One more time, let me hear you now. You won't believe what I heard. You won't believe it. The working class are now becoming one. We realized war was just a rich man's racket. They made billions while we filled their body bags. Where there were schools for torture, people now work out. Families have time to play and sickness has stepped out. You won't believe what I heard, but it might be true. Ready? People work now for the common good. Let me hear you strong. People work now for the common good. Na 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 na. You won't believe what I heard. Would you believe it? We all left the profiteers behind. Once the 99% decided not to kill, corporations simply could no longer steal. Instead of taxes for the war, we're funding schools and parks, science, libraries and sports, and composting and recycling. What else? What else? Solar, wind, arts and poli-sci, my major. We organized our neighborhoods and lost our fear. And war's profit margin disappeared. You won't believe what I heard, but we can make it true. When people work now for the common good, nah, nah. People work now for the common good, yeah, yeah. People work now for the common good, oh yeah. People work now for the common good. Julian told the truth about the war machine. It's getting late in the hour. Don't wait another minute to speak truth to power to the people now. Julian told the truth about the war machine. Getting late in the hour. Don't wait another minute to speak truth to power. Free Julian now, together. Free Julian now. Free, free, free Julian now. Come on. Free Julian now. Free Julian now. Free Julian now. Let's make it a reality. Free Julian now. Harmony. Free Julian now. Let me hear you now. Free, free, free Julian now. One more time, strong. Free Julian now. He spoke for you and me. Free Julian now, and we will set him free. Free, free Julian now. Thank you to Dennis Bernstein for those lyrics. And let's work on freeing Leonard Peltier as well. Thank you. Gracias. Buenas noches.
Okay, that wonderful activist who's circulating the petition is Judy Greenspan. Come on up here, Judy Greenspan. Judy is a tireless anti-war activist, been a leader of the anti-war movement for a lifetime, an activist in the International Action Center that calls actions around the country. Judy's going to speak to you as a greeter, briefly, with love and solidarity. Let's welcome Judy.
You got to make it a little lower.
How's that?
It's fine. Thank you. All right. It's the end of the evening. I know you've been sitting here for a long time, but it's what I feel about all of these struggles. These are struggles that should be in the streets. These are struggles that we should be out there demonstrating. So I hope you can join me on a couple of chants. Brick by brick, wall by wall, we're going to free Mumia, Abu-Jamal. Let me hear you. Brick by brick, wall by wall, we're going to free Mumia, Abu-Jamal, and all the political prisoners. Last year was the year of the political prisoner, and we didn't do our job. Because there are still hundreds of political prisoners. There are the elderly political prisoners who are dying. We have Leonard, we have Matulu, we have many others. We have Mumia, who is seriously immunocompromised. We need to free them now. The other demand that I feel really strongly about is Palestine, right? So from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Let's hear it. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And of course, you've heard a lot about freeing Julian Assange, and we definitely want Julian freed along with everyone else. The International Action Center, we're the people who started the anti-war movement against the first Iraqi war. We've been involved in fighting the wars abroad, the sanctions abroad. We've been fighting for Venezuela. We've been fighting for Cuba. We've been fighting against the sanctions. And we've been also fighting at home to stop the incredible attacks on all of our communities, on the black community. And you know, the Palestinians were one of the first groupings to carry signs saying, Palestinians for Black Lives Matter, because they feel that really strongly. But we also have in this country a rising tide against transgender people, against LGBTQ+ people. We have Don't Say Gay laws. We have Don't Be Trans. We have laws that are targeting youth. We need to get together and stop them all. But I'll just tell you one thing, and it's something that I've learned and the International Action Center has learned. It is not going to be a petition to Joe Biden. It is not going to be a politician. We are going to have to do it by mobilizing, by organizing, and by fighting. Free them all and free Palestine. We can do it.
Thank you, Judy Greenspan. In October 1968, a young woman, a nurse in the Army, in the Navy, got on a plane with a friend of hers and dropped anti-war leaflets over 4 or 5 military bases and an American aircraft carrier. That woman is today with us. She's the president of Veterans for Peace, playing a major role in every social struggle, including the freedom of Julian Assange. Let's welcome Susan Schnall. How's that?
Thank you. It's good to see some of you are staying till the end. Thank you. Hey, America, listen to us. We were the soldiers you sent to Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Iraq, Afghanistan, Okinawa, Japan, Korea, Niger, Syria. We joined the military because we believed your lies about preserving democracy and freedom. Some of us learned through experience that we were told lies. Some of us learned from the truth tellers like Julian Assange with the release of Collateral Murder, a video that revealed the cold-blooded, deliberate murder of Iraqi civilians, attack on Iraqi children, that was filmed from the United States military helicopter as it blasted to pieces 2 reporters from Reuters, 9 other men, and seriously wounded the children. Hey, America, listen to us. We should be honoring people who reveal the truth to us, who launched the foremost global enemy of state secrecy, not torturing him to death in British prisons to face espionage allegations in the United States. Through television and social media, we are witness to the antipathy and ignorance of the American public as wars rage at home to those in poor communities and people of color. We are incited by news organizations like the New York Times that constantly blast accounts of the war in Ukraine as though it were a football game, leading the cheering section of revelers. Let me tell you, as a veteran who cared for soldiers during the American war in Southeast Asia, war injures all who participate. It kills the body and soul. It damages community and families. It impacts generations. And who profits? The war industry, the merchants of death that produce and distribute armaments. It drains our social resources that are life-sustaining, our education, healthcare, social services, housing, and uses those resources for death and destruction. And sometimes we all just continue with our lives, overwhelmed by the enormity of the challenges facing us. Hey, America, listen to us. Listen to the voice of Mumia Abu-Jamal. Contrary to popular belief, conventional wisdom would have one believe that it is insane to resist this, the mightiest of empires. But what history really shows is that today's empire is tomorrow's ashes, that nothing lasts forever, and that to not resist is to acquiesce in your own oppression. The greatest form of sanity that anyone can exercise is to resist that force that is trying to repress, oppress, and fight down the human spirit. We who know the truth have a responsibility to share it with others, to organize, to lead the way toward a sustainable future. War and militarism are destroying the planet. Hey, America, listen to Julian Assange. The media itself, an arm of mega corporate power, feeds the fear industry so that people are primed like pumps to support wars on rumor, innuendo, legends, and lies. Hey, America, wake up and listen to us. We are at war in this country, on this land. We are killing our children. We have become the monster in the world that produces more armaments, more battleships, more drones that annihilate whole communities with the push of a button. We destroy our young. We kill school children with impunity. We poison our water and food supply. We give the wealthy everything, great economic wealth and political power, so they can grab more opportunities for power and money, while we starve the poor denigrate them with substandard housing, substandard education, lack of decent job opportunities, and then offer a way out by joining the military. We arm police departments with military weapons that destroy and kill. There's no trial necessary for the poor and disadvantaged. America maintains its distinction as a world leader in use of incarceration, including more than 1.2 million people held in state prisons around the country. And yet we send our military might all over the world and use it against people of color here. America, what have we become? How did we become immune to the dead children in Texas, in Florida, Chicago, in Parkland, killed by gun violence? How did we become immune to school children killed by guns produced in America, by gunmen produced in America? We export our military violence to the highest bidder. America, we supply the arms used to kill school children in Yemen. We target their school buses. We starve the children in Syria as we starve the children in Venezuela. America, we look for wars as the outlets for our munitions industry. We perpetuate violence in the Middle East. We starve, imprison, attack children in Gaza and the Palestinian children on the West Bank. We are the greatest purveyors of violence in the world today. Hey, America, listen to Julian Assange. By bringing out into the public domain how human institutions actually behave, we can understand, frankly, to a degree, for the first time, the civilization that we actually have. We are from Veterans for Peace, Vietnam veterans against the war. And we say, free Julian Assange, free Mumia Abu-Jamal. Listen to them. Listen to Elie Wiesel. The greatest evil in the world is not anger or hatred, but indifference. We are veterans for peace. We have been to war and part of its destruction. We have witnessed the horrors of armed conflict. We have been part of the dehumanization of those deemed the enemy of the United States. And we veterans say no more. Hey, America, listen to Mumia al-Jabbar. Before this generation goes on to its ancestors, we must do our level best to pass on our lessons so that they live on in people's minds and lives. Let us continue our struggle for peace and justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Please hold tight. We have 10 minutes left for this program, and let's give it to every one of our magnificent speakers. Our next speaker is Nozomi Hayashi. She is the author of the magnificent book, WikiLeaks, The Global Fourth Estate, History is Happening. She's been with us at countless meetings and anti-war activities. She's a lifer in the struggle. A warm welcome to Naomi.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming and staying till the end. And thank you, Jeff, for inviting me to this special event. WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange remains in Britain's maximum security prison, suffering in isolation from our government political persecution. His crime? Publishing truthful information about our government, exposing our illegal wars, torture, and human rights abuses the world over. While the mainstream media have become stenographer for power, Julian has demonstrated fearless journalism. He brought us truth, knowing full well that he would be handed down to the end of the corners of the earth. And he was right. He has been detained in Britain for more than a decade with his basic human rights seriously violated. He was thrown into prison without charge, being kept along with murderers and terrorists. He was given a short trial and was psychologically tortured. Why did he make such a tremendous sacrifice to bring back information that belongs to us? Because he had faith. He believed in us. He believes that each of us has the power to self-determine the course of our lives. Faith is defined as the assent of the mind to the truth of a proposition for which there is incomplete evidence. This faith he had and acted on is the foundation of our country. In the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson invoked this faith when he wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." Like Jefferson, Julian firmly held this principle of equality as truth. He understood the power of we the people expressed in the preamble of our Constitution. He believed in our ability to defend this truth. He was convinced that the informed public could know what is right and can hold the government accountable. Based on this faith in the power of ordinary people, Julian created WikiLeaks. And if you build it, they will come. The whistleblower Chosha Manning used her own act of conscience to uphold the truth as a foundation of our democracy. By releasing the raw footage of the US Army gunning down innocent civilians in Iraq, she courageously stood up for equality for all the people. Through his work with WikiLeaks, Julian fought to defend our democracy. He risked his life with simple faith in our strength and power to realize our ideals. Julian believed in us. He believes in you and me. Now behind the prison wall, he is still fighting. We are the only one who can free Julian. But for this, each of us has to become that person Julian believed in. It's time for us to claim our own significance and become the powerful and courageous persons that we are meant to be. Free Julian Assange, free Mumia Abu-Jamal, free Palestine, free them all. Thank you.
Let's give a warm welcome to the representative of the Bay Area to free Mumia Abu-Jamal, videographer, lifetime activist in the struggle to end this system, Steve Zeltzer.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, brothers and sisters. And I'm glad we're able to have this meeting and also stream it by Frank Sterling to KPFA, because KPFA should be a vehicle. This should be live to all the people of the Bay Area and this country. We have to break the information blockade. So I'm with the Bay Action Committee to free Julian Assange, and we have to build a united front to break the information blockade. I just learned today that in Moldova, community people in Moldova blocked the roads to NATO troops in Moldova today. You're not going to find that on the front pages of the newspapers or in the radio, because they want to tell you that people support war and more military weapons. That's what Julian Assange is about. He's about breaking the information blockade and defending the working people of the world. So we believe that we need to build a mass united front of working people, and particularly unions. And I've been fighting in my union, the Newspaper Guild, Pacific Media Workers Guild, to support it. And one of the things that we've organized, and I think they're going to be urging people to attend, although they're not endorsing it, is we're going to have a press conference at the San Francisco Chronicle on Thursday, 5th and Mission at 12 noon to demand that the Chronicle speak up. Because it's not only Julian Assange who'll go to prison, they will jail publishers, they will jail newspapers. All journalists and publishers are going to be threatened. So we have to stand and demand, all publishers and newspapers have to demand the freedom of Julian Assange. The other event that we're having, and we need to build more united fronts, is an event on October 8th where there'll be an International Day of Action. And we're having an event at the Harry Bridges Plaza on October the 8th, Saturday at noon. And if Julian Assange is sent back to the United States, or brought back to the United States, we're saying the day after that we go to federal buildings and state buildings throughout the country. We have to build a national campaign. It's not about Julian Assange alone, it's about all of us, and we have to win this struggle and free him. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
Steve, I have one criticism of you. You spoke and you didn't finish the last 15 seconds of your time, so we owe it to you in the future. Thank you. Our next speaker is a long-term activist with a wonderful pet named Lucky. She is a leader of Code Pink Women for Peace. She has been at every protest where humanity struggles for a better world and against this system, and she's too shy to come up here. So I'm going to have her speak at the microphone. Welcome, Cynthia Papermaster, a national leader of Assange's defense, Code Pink Women for Peace.
Good evening, everyone. If you're holding a photograph of Assange, please stand with it. And I have 2 minutes. So I would love it if you'd actually come up and face the audience with your photos. Quickly. Thank you, everyone. On October 8th, we want to see you at the Ferry Building Plaza to form a circle in solidarity with the action in London called Hands Around the Parliament. We're doing our own action in San Francisco on the 8th. It's at noon at the Ferry Plaza. Okay, get a little closer together for the photo. Thanks so much. We are all Julian Assange. We are all Julian Assange.
We are all Julian Assange.
Once more. We are all Julian Assange. Thank you, and see you on the 8th at the Ferry Plaza at noon. We have a lot of these yellow ribbons for you to hold, and we'll form a huge circle. Thank you.
Thank you, Code Pink. Thank you, friends from Code Pink. Thank you, Cynthia. Our next speaker is another older fellow, lifelong activist. He doesn't know I'm going to call on him, but his name is Rick Sterling. He's been a driving force in making that video you saw. He's a leading activist in the Mount Diablo Peace and Justice Center. He's a world-class journalist who travels around the world to report the truth in Syria and everywhere else. Let's welcome Rick Sterling.
Thanks very much, Jeff. On behalf of Task Force on the Americas, Mount Diablo Peace and Justice Center, and the Syria Support Movement, I bring greetings and solidarity with tonight's event. Let us celebrate, because Mexico has stepped up big time. Just a couple of days ago, Julian Assange's father and brother were given the keys to Mexico City. They were honored by the Mexico City Mayor and Mexican President López Obrador. AMLO has called for the release of Julian Assange and offered to give him a home in Mexico. President AMLO also delivered a letter to Biden calling for Julian's release. This is an example of how Latin American progressives are in solidarity with Julian Assange. Ecuador provided him a safe place to stay in London for 7 years. Julian lost his safe haven in the Ecuador embassy when U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo bribed and threatened the corrupt new president of Ecuador. Meanwhile, the CIA actively discussed plans to assassinate Julian Assange. The U.S. and their puppets want to prolong Julian's unjust imprisonment as long as possible so that he can never again expose the lies and crimes of governments, and especially the U.S. government. They want to make an example of him. He has been convicted of no crime, yet is in maximum security prison in London. He is threatened with extradition to the U.S., where they want to lock him up for his remaining life. What the U.S. is doing is a crime itself and a threat to all real journalists. Let us join the international call to free Julian Assange. Let us demand that Joe Biden drop the extradition request. Julian has committed no crime. Instead of prison, he deserves our thanks and gratitude for exposing the truth. Just like Mumia Abu-Jamal, just like the Palestinian prisoners such as Marwan Barghouti, just like the recently murdered Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. The warmongering U.S. NATO establishment wants to silence or kill Julian Assange. It is our job to set him free. Will you help? There are many ways and good organizations here tonight. The October event, the other events that Steve talked about, I urge you to participate in as many as possible. Free Julian Assange, free Julian Assange, free Julian Assange.
Our last speaker deserves a standing ovation. Let's give it to him because he has been patient, and patience is a necessity in this movement. His name is Roger Harris. He's at every demonstration I've ever been to. He's with a new group that is critical. It's called Free Alex Saab Defense Committee. And he represents the statewide California Peace and Freedom Party. Let's welcome Roger Harris.
Good evening. And this will be quick. When Joe Biden ascended to become the CEO of the imperialist world, he proclaimed that the world will be under a rules-based order. Now, what did he mean by a rules-based order? He meant a system that was not international law. It was a system where the United States makes the rules and the rest of the world follows those orders. And no better example are the examples that we heard today, victims of the U.S. imperialism. There was complete disregard by the United States of international law. The U.S. has attempted to extradite Julian Assange to the United States. The United States has been successful in extraditing a Venezuelan diplomat by the name of Alex Saab to the United States. Alex Saab, on the behest of the United States, is going on 3 years of prison. The case of Alex Saab is a diplomat who should be immune to arrest and detention under the Vienna Convention. This is international law to which the United States is a signatory. It affords diplomats absolute immunity from arrest and detention, even in the time of war. Alex Saab is considered a national hero in Venezuela because he has been instrumental in helping circumvent the U.S.-imposed unilateral coercive measures explicitly designed to starve the Venezuelan people into submission. Over 100,000 Venezuelans have perished because of this illegal blockade. This is a hybrid war against Venezuela that is as deadly as a shooting war. The so-called sanctions are illegal under international law because they're a form of collective punishment. Alex Saab's only crime was to bring needed fuel, food, and medicine to the Venezuelan people and circumvent the illegal and immoral US blockade of that country. It is not a crime to bring humanitarian aid. Help us build a movement to free Mumia, to free Julian, to free Palestine, to free all the victims of US imperialism. Thank you.
Thank you, my wonderful, patient, loving, dedicated audience. If you want to help out for the Roger Waters concert, sign up. Thank you for coming. Let's say it one more time. Free Julian. Free Mumia. Free Palestine. Free them all. Thank you very, very much.